What's going on, world? This is your girl, Marky Lemons-Ryhal. And as you know, I spend a lot of time on the road. And some of us have been back out on the road, especially since August. And for some reason, I keep running into the same company, the same group of people. But really, what is cool about this organization is the fact that I met them years ago at a Inman conference. And I knew that their product and service was dynamic at that time based on some of the intel it told me about my database. And so today we are going to be talking to Revaluate. And I have Ryan, I'm going to make sure I get it all the way right, Dendievel, right? Dendievel, the VP of Business Development. And I said, so how do you want me to describe your company? Because instantly I started thinking customer relationship management system, but I was thinking customer relationship management system on steroids. And Ryan, you got me all the way together. You said it's about efficiency and database segmentation. What's going on today, Ryan?
Thank you for having me, Marky. I'm glad to be able to come here. I love that you say you keep running into us. I tell our co-founder and CEO, Chris Dreyer, I tell him that my job is to be in the room everywhere so that people are always seeing us. And so I'm glad I'm doing my job well.
You are doing your job well because I saw you at Celebration, so on Lake Tahoe. I believe I saw you at Inman in Vegas, and then I saw you at the Realtor Conference and Expo in San Diego. So that's 3 places. And let me say this, we might have been in more places together, but that's 3 places we've been in the same room ever since August of this calendar year. But I'm going to go back in time. I remember actually sampling your product at an Inman conference. And at that time, because I know rules and regulations have changed, but I connected it to a group inside of my Google contacts. And you guys told me some astronomical figure that my database was worth at that time. And I'm like, oh, I'm sitting on a gold mine when it comes to the world of real estate because you had a lot of great insight into the people who were in my database based on other information. But I know that you've made some updates to your product. So I want you to tell everybody what Revaluate is and how this can be beneficial to them in their real estate business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, you said earlier, customer relationship management. And so we shy away. We're not, as a company, a CRM per se. We play nicely with the CRMs that our clients are already using because it's such a pain in the neck to have to switch your whole database from where your comfort zone is to somewhere else. And so we're API driven. So we integrate directly with the solutions that people are already using. And our main core use case or the reason we exist as a company is to help to prioritize your time, energy, and resources to be focused on the right people at the right time with the right message to get the results you're looking for. So, what that means really is we look through the contacts in a given database, and by looking for life event indicators that represent someone needing to make a change in scenery, we look for the people who are most likely to be moving in the next 6 months. And that's all cool, but the kind of highlight reel is that we boil it down into a raw 0 to 100 score so that it's easy to understand and it's actionable, right? Because all the data in the world is great, but if you don't know what action to take, then it doesn't do anybody any good. And so that 0 to 100 score is really the main deliverable for our clients. It says, okay, 80 and above, those are people I need to make sure I'm obsessing over so that because they're going to be doing something and they're going to need my assistance in one way, shape, or form.
Okay, so that would come with the efficiency and prioritizing. So when you say life events, the first thing that came to mind is that I have a calendar for all of the agents to use. And in that calendar, over on the left-hand side, I have this little thing that says the word forward. And forward means that when they're reaching out to people, they should focus on 4 things: family, occupation, recreation, their dreams or desires. So when I'm thinking about prioritizing, I'm thinking about forward, right? I need to come back and talk about your family, your occupation. Did you get a raise? Heck, are you gainfully unemployed and need to sell? Your recreation, your dreams, and your desires. And you said it was API driven, but let me ask you this. With focusing on that forward script, do you also use any predictive analytics, or is it inside of understanding the system?
Yeah. So, and I love that you pulled the Ford out. I was an ISA and an ISA trainer and an ISA coach in a previous life, and we used the Ford method too. And that was really when I became exposed to Revaluate before coming on board as a team member here, was by being a client first, and loved how much synergy there was between that philosophy and what we do. So, call it predictive analytics, call it machine learning, call it artificial intelligence, big data. It's kind of buzzword bingo, really, because not everybody knows what all those things mean. But yeah, we monitor data streams for social, search, spend, and public record data. It all gets pulled in and goes into our algorithms that look for indicators of these life events. So, what I call my Fisher Price, my first analytics example is, this person bought a bunch of diapers on Amazon. And while that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean anything, if in conjunction with that, they also register for a gift registry at buybuy.baby.com and they live in a 2-bedroom house and they already have 3 kids, that all goes into the algorithms and it says, okay, it looks like there's a newborn on the way. They've outgrown the home they live in. This looks like someone who's probably going to need to move, and that would raise their score. And then an alert would go out if they were in your database in our system saying, hey, Marky, time to go to work, so to speak, because that's where we stop and our client systems, strategies, and processes take over, is that we don't market to or communicate with anyone in the database. Our role is just to be that layer of insight so that nobody slips through the cracks when your attention may be focused elsewhere, because their data is showing that, whether it's a death or a divorce, or we call them the data Ds, right? Death, divorce, diapers, diamonds, diplomas, downsizing, the daily grind. I could go on and on and on, but those examples give you the feel for why Ford layers over it so well. Because if you're asking the right questions, you'll find out what it is that we saw that made it look like they were going to be moving.
Well, first of all, you just gave me, I'm always looking at acronyms and things that I could add. So I'm going back to these daily deeds, and you listed like 10 of them, right? And diamonds definitely would be one of them, right? And so we have a tool inside of our MLS, called Remind, right? Which is a predictive analytics tool. And I can tell you right now, AI, artificial intelligence, is a very big argument in my house. My husband is a locomotive engineer, kind of old school guy. My husband believes that Facebook is the work of the devil and he does not have a Facebook account. Me, on the other hand, I'm going to be on Facebook a couple of times a day. I think it's the greatest place to learn about the Ford, but now I'm going to say to learn about the deeds, right? Because people are telling us all of their business in real time. But the reason this is such an issue in my house, AI, I am 100% a diehard Waze user. Like, I don't care if I'm going around the corner. I want to know the fastest way to get around the corner. Do I go down the street and make the left-hand turn, or do I go the other way and make a right-hand turn? And my husband's like, but Mark, you know where you're going. Why do you need that tool? And I'm like, because it's going to tell me the fastest way to get there, right? And when we think about the average age of a realtor, a lot of them are like my husband, right? They're like, well, why should I use this tool? And what about predictive analytics? I don't believe in AI, but let me tell you something. The reason for it is because it will allow you to either net more time or net more money, right? What is the true benefit? So when you look at everything that this means, what are some of your success stories of people who have used your platform in conjunction with their customer relationship management system?
Yeah. Our most successful clients use us as an if-then trigger to kind of transition people through their successive sales and marketing funnels. So like, someone hits a certain threshold, the message changes, the cadence changes, whatever automations, whether it's even just some email drip or social media retargeting or whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways to communicate with people. I'm a big fan of what I call like omnipresent, omni-channel. So you're everywhere. Like, people can't avoid you. If they prefer Facebook, then you're in their Facebook. If they prefer email, you're in their email. If they prefer text, you're in their text. I always train people that everyone has a different favorite form of communication. And if you stay to your favorite, then you cut out everybody who has a different favorite. Like, You're never going to get my wife to pick up the phone. I don't care who you are. She doesn't pick up my phone calls. She's not going to pick up a stranger's phone calls. But if you meet her in the text realm, then you're far more likely to get a response. And if you can get to her in her actual Facebook feed because you're connected in some way, shape, or form, that's a way easier way to get in front of her. And that's just one example, right? Everybody's different. So success stories, I hear them all because I work with our top clients. So I hear everything from the person who tells me like, I got this person you told me was going to move. And I said, no way, that's my godson. I talk to them all the time. They're not moving. But at Thanksgiving dinner, we sat down and I said, hey, my machine learning told me that you were going to be moving. What's going on with that? And I'm like, well, we haven't told the family yet, but I got a new job and we actually are going to be moving. The fact of the matter is data tells a story sometimes before the person even knows that that's what's going on with them. And so I tell people our job is to be in the business of manufactured moments, where the more times in a day you hear, it's so crazy that you reached out to me because I was just thinking about XYZ, the better we're doing at our job. And so we don't tell people what's going on in the life because that would be super creepy, but we tell you who is important for you to reach out to and have a dialogue with, because in this industry, that's what we're supposed to be good at, right? We're supposed to be good at conversation and relationship and building rapport. So we're just here to give the nudge to say, this is someone, someone in your database. You already have connected with them at some point in time, unless it's a farming database. But generally speaking, they've had some sort of engagement, time to reach out and re-engage with them.
Wow. So something you said that stood out was if-then system, right? And instantly I started thinking about IFTTT, if then that, right? Where we are basically automating processes and communication. So I love the if then. So let's say, for instance, in the situation that you knew the person was going to relocate and you find out that they're relocating for a job, right? Now, first of all, they might have relocation money. Are they going to be able to afford more house than what they selling? Like, I'm thinking of all these if then triggers. So I'm loving the fact of that, because I've been using tools like if this, then that, and Zapier in order to automate, I call it to automate those redundant tasks. But this, in the way that you mentioned it, it was to trigger those communication points and change the dialogue, as I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. So, the first conversation I have with anyone who, we're having a first conversation about what we do and how it might fit into their business is, we're not here to reinvent the wheel. Whatever you're doing that's working for you, I always encourage stay with that. We're just here to refine and make that whole experience more efficient. Back to the whole beginning is like, rather than sending everybody a message every 3 months, maybe you still send everybody a message every 3 months. But if something happens a month later and your cadence is set to be 2 months after that, that's going to be a miss. And so, it's funny in technology and data, people get all squeamish about like technology trying to replace the human element. And that's what I love about what we do is we don't want to replace anything. We want to enhance the human element. We just want to say, you don't say I'm not going to go to the gym because I'm already in shape. You go to the gym to get more in shape. So we're here to just help people's systems get better and improve and make it so that your opportunities are your opportunities and they don't go to somebody else or to, one of these big portals or whatever.
So now what you're saying that when I think about coming back to artificial intelligence, the more you use the system, the better it becomes, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So the more we leverage the tool with the customer relationship management system, the better our system becomes because of the utilization. So I'm liking that. Now, with something else I wanted to ask you, based on the communication style, because I was talking about my husband and the fact he thinks Facebook is the work of the devil. But I love your wife, because if you're trying to get me on the telephone, it's going to be a little hard, right? But if you on Facebook, you get me all the time. So can the system trigger you to let you know what a person's preferred communication style is?
Oh, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer. Not currently. That's not built into the system. But man, that's a really cool thought, because we do monitor data streams, so we would know which data streams are heavier ingestion of information. No one's ever asked me that question before. I think that's really cool. That's why I love doing this stuff, because I get new questions that can help us get better too.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thought process, right? I tell people all the time, when you want something from me, you must communicate with me in my preferred communication style to get it, right? I don't like to talk on the telephone. So that means that email and text message is my preferred communication style. However, because I have 100 to 125 bosses in any calendar year from different associations, whether that's the CEO or the director of education, if their preferred method of communication is talking on the telephone, since I'm seeking an independent contractor agreement for them, I'm picking up the telephone and I'm calling them. Right. Yep. Because that is their preferred communication style. So if we knew that, according to their lack of response on social media, the likelihood is Facebook might not be the place for you to communicate with them, but we do know that they spend 3 hours per day on Instagram. I might send them a message on Instagram and not on Facebook, right? So just something I'm throwing out there, because if it had a telephone, a text pad, or a email icon, then we would know where we could initiate that communication with them based on their preferred communication style. The whole manufactured moments, right? When I'm thinking about this, I have met with a sorority sister of mine, and this is not, I don't even have to bring my sorority sister into this. I'm bring women into this. I am the divorce predictor of Facebook. And I tell people there are 3 indicators that let me know there's a problem in paradise. Besides the fact that she's not consistently talking about her spouse anymore, besides the fact she's not tagging him in every single post, I'm just going to put that's kind of high level notice. At the moment, she starts posting motivational quotes every day. Like, she's not missing a day on a motivational quote. She's back in the gym religiously. We got a whole new wardrobe of workout gear. And then she starts talking spirituality, or she goes back to church, right? And I tell people, I joke, I say she ain't been to church this much since summer vacation Bible school, and we went together in 1977, right? But this is the truth, right? So there are 3 indicators to me when a woman is getting ready or mentally preparing herself to leave her significant other. And those are the 3. Besides, she not tagging them in the post no more, right? So let me just bring my sorority sister. So I met with her, and I was like, she was like, I don't know if you know this or not, but my husband and I are separated. I said, yeah, I know you're separated. I know it's problems in paradise. She looked at me. I said, but let me tell you something. It is not because the sorority sisters are sitting around talking about you and your spouse. The reason I know is because you used to post about your husband every single day, and you have not posted nothing about that man in a year. And I could see her look at me with wonder in her eyes. And she was going through her mind like, when was the last time I posted him? And she says, I guess it has been that long. Yeah. I said, be clear, I'm not the only one who knows that, because I'm pretty sure other people have taken notice. So what you're looking at is not only these public things, right? That to me, a psychology class in college would have taught you, because that's where I learned that from. But you're also looking at that search behavior. Did this same person look up a divorce attorney? Right. Look at how to get my marriage back on track. I'm assuming that's what they would look up, right? But divorce attorney would probably be high on the list. Or did they ask Facebook, do you know of a good divorce attorney? Like, duh, that is not the question I'm asking Facebook about if I'm trying to keep people out of my business.
Yep. That's funny. That's a great example too of like what we found early on when we were building this out. Social media is a part of the equation, but where we thought social media would be a much bigger piece of the puzzle, the problem is that it's a lagging indicator typically. By the time you go to Facebook to tell people your business, it's been your business long enough that you're comfortable putting it out there. And so with the search and the spend and the public record stuff, that becomes a much bigger piece of the puzzle, because it happens kind of in the background. You're not, Facebook, and especially like Instagram, right? That's your public face. I know I use like Facebook's my friends, generally speaking, and Instagram's my professional. There's overlap, obviously, because of the industry we're in, but either scenario, that's what you're willing to share with the public, whereas the rest of your data tells a much different story. I don't know, are you familiar with the target example that people use all the time when it comes to artificial intelligence? It's a kind of a story in the data communities that I heard it from my boss the first time.
I've not heard it, but could you tell us so that we'll understand the target story?
Yeah. So, and, I may butcher it because I'm not the expert, but so Target, they have so much data because people who shop there, they analyze what people are purchasing in their stores so that they can push, whether it's social media retargeting or even just their general mailer ads. And so they'll mail coupons to people based on their purchasing, kind of like how CVS has the mile long receipt every time you use their advanced care thing or whatever. So Target got really, really good at looking at this and identifying like, okay, so if somebody buys these vitamins and this lotion and this other thing, that usually means that they're pregnant. And so they started sending out, prenatal coupons and just pregnancy style advertising to people. Well, this father got the mail one day in I don't remember the town so don't screw it up, but dad gets the mail and there's mail addressed to his teenage daughter and he opens it up and it's like, congratulations on your pregnancy. Here's some coupons and he gets all mad. Well, come to find out, she was pregnant. She hadn't told dad yet, but Target got in all sorts of trouble because they kind of overreached in that regard. And they were, all they were doing was analyzing purchasing patterns. But, the data tells a story sometimes before the person, whether they even don't know it or they're just not sharing that story yet. And so that's why we don't really share what the D is that goes into our score, because we don't want we want to future proof and protect our clients from sticking their foot in their mouth or doing anything accidental or on purpose, whatever. But so that's why we just do the trigger so that people just have to have the conversation. But that story really just speaks to the way that our habits tell a story that we're not even aware of because we're just going through it. And it's the same thing you were talking about, just you figured it out without the computer to tell you.
Well, here's what else is interesting. So we talked earlier about the fact that I've had surgical procedures for a fat disorder called lipedema. Well, you would have known, the system would have known that I was searching lipedema before I decided to tell Facebook that I had lipedema, because I started looking up lipedema, heavy legs, compression garments, all of these things I was searching for well before I decided to go to Facebook. By the time I went to Facebook, I knew exactly how I was going to address the issue. I had identified a surgeon. Like, surgery is like the last ditch option. I'm like, forget all this other stuff. I've had this problem for 41 years. I'm taking care of this right now. And this is how I'm going to take care of it. And I'd even reached out to someone, an artist, to basically do a character of my body, because I didn't want them to just see the regular photos. I wanted it to be more of a character of myself, but I didn't want it to be some a lot of people using like abstract art. I wanted them to know if they looked at it, that's Marky, right? I had did all of this, like probably 60 days worth of research before I knew I was going to share it on Facebook, but how I wanted to present it on Facebook, I didn't just want it to be raw. And I still had a bunch of questions. I wanted to feel solid in my knowledge of the situation before I put it out there to the feedback of people who might not have any knowledge, right? Sure. So what I'm hearing is, yeah, Facebook might be a good indicator, but there are things that they're doing well before they decide to become social, right? With whatever this is that they're searching for. Absolutely. Oh, wow. See, and to me, with the Target example, even though I tell people all the time, when you know a person's business, you don't come and let them know you know their business. Can you throw out an indicator, which is something that you're doing really good as a company? Hey, this is a D, but we're not going to tell you what D. We just know you need to follow up and have some conversations. All right. So, okay, what else we need? What else does the real estate community need to know? Because guess what? This has been a great learning experience for me, because I love the whole AI. I see how it changes, how it evolves. The more you put in, the more you utilize it, and how this would play well. The fact that you're working with all of the different customer relationship management systems it's not intended to be a replacement, but an enhancer to the system that you have, so that you become more efficient. And if you got 10,000 people essentially right in your database, there's no way to effectively communicate with that 10,000 people. How do we now identify, a couple of hundred people who are most likely to make a decision in the next 12 months? Well, if you're looking at 2022, these are the 300 people who you might want to pay some special attention to, because we know one of these Ds.
Yep. Nailed it. I think one thing that you mentioned earlier with Remind, right? So Remind does a really good job at what they do, and there's other solutions out there that that kind of play in our space. But you mentioned I was a psych major in college also, so it's placed near and dear to my heart. And I always tell people that those other solutions, they take a very property focused approach to the way they do their predicting. So Remind, they focus on MLS data, public record data, maybe some mortgage information, kind of run it up against statistical averages to identify, average homeowner moves every 7 years. This person's been here 6.5. You should give them a call, that type of information. And there's obviously value there. And some people have some really good success with those types of systems. Just it's a certain style of approach. The limitation that they tend to run into, though, is because they are so property focused, they're not paying much attention to the person who lives inside the home. And so I call what they do more of the sociological approach. It's based around figures and people in large groups. Whereas what we do is more of the psychological approach, where we kind of focus on the individual themselves and the indicators that are going on in the life of the person. Because, maybe they sold their house 6.5 years ago. That's great. But I still haven't met anybody with a calendar on the wall that says, 6.5 years, time to sell my house. And so by taking the more individual approach, we probably have different hits and different misses. We have plenty of people who will take and kind of combine the two systems. Like, these are the people they say, what do you guys say? But we find different outliers, basically, because we're looking for the individual and they're looking for the large group.
Wow, I love all of that. So for all of the realtors who are watching today, how would they work with you and your company? What's the website? How do they find this information in order to enhance what they already have?
Yep, our website's www.revaluate.com. It's REV, so your autocorrect will almost always try to add 2 E's, but it's only one. It's just revaluate.com. If you go there, you can schedule a consultation with myself or anyone on my team just to kind of talk about what systems you have in place, what your database looks like, and what your goals are and how we might be able to assist. We have some partners with some CRMs that handle the reseller, and there's, depending on what CRM you use, you may work with us or you may work through them directly. Just kind of depends on the relationship we have in place, and those relationships are growing as quickly as I can grow them. So if you use a CRM that we don't have a relationship with, we also have Zapier capabilities so that we can kind of duct tape it together until we have a direct one.
Oh, excellent. So Zapier, using that to connect the two APIs together and for it to function seamlessly.
Yep. Yeah. And there's some really slick zaps that people have put together that I've seen that can do some really, really cool stuff. We built the templates on our side to make it as plug and play as possible for people so that they can just kind of click and add it and it'll do its thing.
I know people are like, what are they talking about? They just took us all the way through the back end. Yes, we did take you all the way through the back end, because this is how you build that sustainable real estate business, how you understand already the moves you need to make in the upcoming year, because it will let you know probably where you need to be focusing your time and your energy in this new calendar year. Everybody, we want to thank you, but guess what? I love the tool. The very first time I demoed it, it told me so much about my current database. And I was like, you know what? This is a phenomenal tool. And anything that can save us time and energy and net us more income is where we need to focus our attention. Ryan, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.